Hello Supercars fans, James Pavey here from Supercars.com, here with 2015 Supercars champion Mark Winterbottom. Frosty, this is the Bailey Ladders Run Home. We're recapping a crazy, absolutely crazy ITM New Zealand doubleheader. Topor delivered, and then the first ever Christchurch event. Man, who could have seen what was coming there, Frosty? And then we're going to go straight into the hot topic that everyone's talking about. Chaz Mostert versus Brodie Kostecki. Your initial thoughts to that one?
Well, it was huge couple of weekends. I was glued to the TV watching some of the battles, and like you said, the Brodie Kostecki Chaz Mostert one. Look, I'm a massive Chaz Mostert fan. I've teamed up with him. I'm mates with him. He's an incredible guy. But looking at that situation, Kostecki's move was very good. It was forceful, but it's 101 Supercars. Give him enough room on exit. Don't lock the tyre. Feed him a door. Have a bit of contact. I thought it was a pretty good move, but Chaz, he retaliated. He wanted to show him he wasn't happy with the move, but the first touch is okay, but the second, the third, once they locked wheels and he went off, that was massive. So, look, I think Chaz put his hand up pretty cleanly after. It's pretty obvious who was at fault and who's at the right position there, but this will kickstart a bit of rivalry, and we've seen a bit of steam between those two before. So this is going to carry on throughout the year. They were very calculated when they hopped out the car paves. That's not how drivers act. That was 20 minutes after the accident too. So I'd expect fireworks. Look, going forward, it's going to be on between these two.
Yeah, I was in the paddock as it was unfolding after the race, Frosty, and when Chaz and Brodie both, to their credit, they stood up and they went on the broadcast and had their piece. And then shortly after those interviews, they spoke to each other. And Garth Tander made a really interesting point on the broadcast, saying that it's better that you have a chat in pit lane to each other. You're not going to agree, but as long as you get your voice across before you hear things in the media or secondhand from people. What's your take on that?
Well, it's better to be upfront. Like, sometimes the drivers, they go away and then they text or they Instagram message you or something, and I find that really weak. And to have it, face to face like Chaz did, Chaz owned it. I think he went up there and played his case. So, credit to Chaz. You've got to own some incidences. They always... One will go your way, one won't, but you got to own it when it goes wrong, and I think Chaz did that. But best way to address it, go face to face, say, hey, I wasn't happy with how you passed me at 1 or 2, and then Brodie says, hey, I'm not happy going sideways on the dirt. So, but 20 minutes, 30 minutes after the tension eases a bit, the red mist comes off. So, I'm sure if that was done 30 minutes earlier, straight out the car, you see that, that aggression and a bit more of a fight. So handled well. The funny thing was watching Cam Waters in the background going, hey, Brodie, go get Chaz. Hey, Chaz, go get Brodie. What did he say? I actually like seeing that vision. But look, they handled it well. They're both fierce racers. They're probably two of the most competitive, hardest drivers on the grid. So you don't want to take that away. I love watching it. And this is what our sport's built on. Rivalries, aggression, big moves. We've got doors. We can bang each other. And sometimes you come off second best, but like I said, you got to own it, and that's how you move forward.
So Chaz owned it. He later apologised on social media. At the time of recording, Brodie has released his own podcast, Lucky Dogs, and he claimed that the move was malicious. Do you think that move from Chaz was malicious?
Malicious is a big word, isn't it? It's sometimes hard. In motorsport, I've had it before where you try and squeeze a guy, and if the end result is bad, then what you did was bad. But if you just come away with rubbing and put a bit of tyre marks on the guy's door panel, it actually is okay. So sometimes the move gets judged on the consequence of what happens after. So Brodie was lucky, if he had a spun, hit a flag marshal post or come back on and hit Will Brown, or then that move, you can start to dive into, I don't like the word malicious, but those sort of words, So, but the fact he spun, stopped, started it, and everyone was safe, you kind of look at that move as just hard racing. But it's one of those things, isn't it? You sometimes, what did Brodie say? You had a bug with a windscreen or something? He was definitely the bug on that day. So, but he'll get it back. I'm sure he'll have his moment where he's side by side and that elephant memory kicks in and you squeeze the other car out. And he was actually quite polite to Chaz on the Exeter too. So if you ask Brodie now, what do you do different? I'm sure he squeezes Chaz next time he passes him that same way and doesn't give him an opportunity to get back in the door and the exit. So we remember as drivers, you always remember moving forward.
Well, that's a point that Craig Lowndes made in his latest column for Supercars.com. Chaz apologised all you want, but Brodie will put that in the back of his mind for future rounds. What do you think this rivalry means for at least the rest of the season moving forward? Because there's so much at stake, and as it stands, Chaz is now 11th in the championship. So when you're running champions that low on the points, there are 5 rounds left in the Sprint Cup. I mean, Chaz has really got to start thinking about points, hasn't he? And if Brodie's going to have that in the back of his mind, it could affect his championship.
You got to finish in the top 10, and you don't want too many enemies, Paige. Like in motorsport, you just got to try and get through. Be as aggressive as you can, but you need allies and you need mates. So roughing up Brodie Kostecki isn't probably the guy that I would want to go and rough up. But on the flip side, moving forward after the finals or the 10 or whatever the play comes out in Enduros, Chaz is going to get faster and faster because we're seeing how fast that Toyota is, and he's under pressure at the moment from Ryan Wood because he delivered in New Zealand. He was far ahead of my expectation of where that Toyota would be and where he would be. So he's putting pressure on Chaz. Chaz is out of the 10, like you said. So this is a turning point for Chaz, but don't throw him away. You know, he's the defending champ for a reason. This time last year, if you look back, he was in a very similar position where you don't write him off, but he was struggling. I remember Ipswich, he had brake issues. He was, Woody was going quite well. He was under the pump, and I think he likes that. He's the underdog and he fights. So expect to see Chaz back in the top 10, but don't make too many enemies this early in the championship.
So let's go straight to Ryan Wood. I mean, what a huge fortnight it was for Ryan in New Zealand. A place he calls home, a place he just loves, and the fans love him, Frosty. I can't recall seeing so much new merch being bought at the racetrack. We've picked Ryan Wood for our Who Stepped Up this week for Bailey Letters, and I think it's fair enough. He was so close to winning the Jason Richards Memorial Trophy. You won that trophy a few years ago, and it's a very special feeling, but at the same time, mate, I mean, that's heartbreaking for him.
Yeah, and he was unbelievable. Like, we look at the last round because it's the most current, but in Topor, he was unbelievable. He's leading that Toyota fight on his own. Like, I don't want to say that the other guys are doing a bad job, but far out, he is leading that program and delivering. And his one-lap speed is very good. He showed his race pace and his tyre life is pretty good. That's where I thought they would get beat over there, but winning and being up the front consistently for those 2 weekends, big tick for Ryan Wood. And the car's only going to get better. I think that Toyota is far from its, top maximum capabilities. So for what he did at his age and his experience level and where he is in probably his point of career, he's far down the road to how many races he started. Like, he's very experienced. He's done a great job. And without him, Toyota actually is struggling a little bit. So he is definitely leading that program. And that JR Trophy would have capped it off. I think being a Kiwi and knowing how much that trophy means, not just to us when we win it, but to Kiwis in particular, you can see the emotion. And that's what I love about Ryan Wood. He is up and about and passionate. And when it goes pear-shaped, he wears his heart on his sleeve. And he's a really, really cool competitor. And he's one, when I watch, you know what you're going to get. It's raw emotion, and he's a really, really good young kid. He's going to win a championship, no doubt. Whether it's this year or not, who knows? But Farad, he is very, very good.
Well, I don't want to call it a curse, but I put out a tweet earlier this week about just how much Ryan's gone through in the last 12 months. I'll read it out. Perth suspension issue, Darwin engine, Bathurst engine, Gold Coast fuel leak, Sandown wheel, Adelaide suspension, and now what happened on Sunday? Mate, I mean, is it a curse for the number 2? Does Ryan just have a lot of bad luck? How do you race knowing that you might have your number on it?
It's really tough. And this is where I think, the fact that he's young and he's resilient is very powerful, because he doesn't get drawn or stuck down. You see him hop out the car, and sometimes he's almost got tears in his eyes. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but he forgets it. He goes back the next week and delivers. And he's only, 1 weekend away from another win. So he's bouncing back really strong. But for some reason, and it's not because of him, but that car has had a bit of bad luck. And, last year, I thought he would win the championship. If he had have got through Gold Coast and not had that issue, even after all the setbacks he had, I think he goes on and wins the championship. So very resilient young man, and you're going to have to get used to that in motorsport though, because it does, it does go pear-shaped a lot of times, but he keeps bouncing back, and that's a great strength for him. But they've got to work it out, because his car in particular is copying a lot of issues, and we can say it's a Toyota because obviously it's a new program and you're going to have things go wrong. But last year he copped it so many times. So got to do something in the background, but don't, it's not him. He's going to keep bouncing back, winning races. And when it all comes together, he's a championship threat.
One team that has worked it out, Frosty, Penrite Racing. Wow, the performance from those guys in Christchurch. Not just Matty Payne in the last 2 races, but Kai Allen got his first ever Supercars win. They're very, very deserving of Bailey Ladders, who stepped up. But mate, their performance, Penrite Racing, can they win this championship?
They were incredible. And, Kai Allen was very good. They're solid. Those two are working very well together. And out of all of pit lane, they're going to be leading the points very soon because they're working together very well. I see Kai kind of, even when you hear those comments on the restart, hey, don't attack Matt, hold position. They've got a very strong team focus in play. That come from Alistair, who stepped up into a new, chief engineer role. They're playing the team game very strong. So I see unity there. It will get to a point where if they are very strong, you're going to have 2 cars in the top 4 in the championship, and this is where it's going to get tricky at the end of the year. But at the moment, they are the form team. They've had, a bit of instability because they've lost Couchy, they've lost Grant McPherson, but that is by far their strongest round I've ever seen them have. So they're in a good place, very good place. And then Matt Payne, when he wins, he doesn't just win by car length. He wins by 10 seconds down the road. He's very, very fast. So I picked him at the start of the year when I got asked who would win the championship. I said Matt Payne. I'm looking pretty good at the moment, I'll be honest, Payes. I don't think many people are looking like they're going to threaten that team, too quickly. But who knows? We've still got a long way to go. This finals campaign, you just got to get in the top 10, then you got to get in the top 7, then you got to get the top 4. And then when you're at Adelaide, it's all down to one weekend. So we saw Feeney last year in this position. That doesn't guarantee a win, but at the moment, my bet of Matt Payne winning the championship looks pretty good.
But what about Kai Allen, Frosty? I mean, he moved from 11th in the points to 5th in one weekend, got his first win. Across all 4 races in Christchurch, he topped the points, so he was the guy to beat. Obviously, Matt Payne lost his wheel in that second race. So will Penrite Racing have a bit of a problem on their hands should both drivers make finals at the very least? You'd have to say they would. If they make the semi-final like they did last year, if they make the grand final, that's not going to be very comfortable for them, is it?
It's not going to be very comfy, but let's see where Matt Payne goes. If he stays, that'll definitely determine what happens in that team page. Don't worry, they do favour the one who stays. So let's look at what happens there first. But if they get 2 in the final, I always said it's easier to win the championship with 1 car in the top 4 because you do want favouritism, you want pitch strategies, you want quality preference, you want everything on your side. And last year we saw how powerful Ryan Wood was to Chaz Mostert. And this year, imagine having, if 1 car makes it, say Matt Payne makes the top 4 and Kai doesn't, imagine having Kai Allen as your ally and vice versa. Going to Adelaide, Kai Allen makes it in the top 4 and you've got Matt Payne as an ally. So they're in a very, very good position. And I like the way they're very calculated, very calm. They're not arrogant in the way they're going about racing, and that comes from the team as well. They're not making many mistakes, even though the wheel fell off Matt's car. I don't see them making a lot of mechanical issues or mistakes. And at the moment, they look like they're the form team. So, and if Matt Payne didn't crash at the Grand Prix and lose a wheel, he's 100 points off the road. So they're in a very good position, but Kai's going to get better and better. Once you get your first race win, you get the monkey off the back and you feel, it starts to happen a lot easier. Everything starts to flow and momentum is a big thing. So I'd expect Kai now to build and get a lot more consistent like we saw on the weekend, and that's championship threat. So they're in a good spot.
So let's move along to Red Bull Ampol Racing, Frosty. Brock Feeney ended the New Zealand swing with the Jason Richards Trophy, which was a shock to me. I'm sure it was a shock to a lot of people. It was definitely a shock to Brock because he couldn't believe it. He was just smiling from ear to ear. But Triple Eight, Frosty, they're not their usual ultra competitive selves, they're actually making a few mistakes in pit lane. So where do you view where they sit in the pecking order? Will Brown is just inside the top 10, but it's been a roller coaster for him. Still leading the team's points, but man, Triple Eight, they're quite hard to read now, aren't they?
They are. They're not the powerhouse that they were last year in the Chev. But they're going to get better, and there's no doubt. The teams that are competitive at the moment, bar Ryan Wood, Penrite, they know their forward very well. Kostecki knows his forward very well. They're going to get better and better. But what I really thought was impressive on the weekend, Brock Feeney, he's a champion. He's got a 50-year-old head on the young shoulders, because he's not picking enemies. He's just doing what he's got to do. He hasn't got the fastest car, so you can't say, oh, it's just a Triple Eight car, that's why he won it. He's very smart. He picks his battles. He's not making enemies, and he's getting the job done, and he's leading the points. So I'm really impressed by what Brock Feeney's done, the last couple of weeks. He's driving very well. Will Brown's driving really aggressive, blocking everyone, making lots of enemies. So he's got a little bit of a target maybe, because he's driving very hard, but he's scrambling and fighting hard to be in the top 10, because when you look back at Sydney and at the Grand Prix, he was back in 15th or 16th position. So he's scrambling to get back in the points, and their time will come where they get better and better. In terms of pit stops, I've never seen Triple Eight make so many mistakes. Call suits failing, radios failing, lots of little things that are not Triple Eight like. So I'm sure a very quick turnaround between the Grand Prix New Zealand. They were repairing cars, which does stop you from doing the little things that we need to work on at race teams, call suits, etc. So they'll get better. They've got a bit of a gap now. They get better. They'll move forward. And again, this finals campaign, it didn't work for them last year. But if you're Triple Eight, the finals campaign is something you'd be looking forward to. So never write them off. But they're not at the level of Triple Eight that we've seen for the last decade.
In the same breath, Frosty, if the team is making little mistakes, whether it's reliability or pit stops, does that weigh in the back of your mind as a driver?
It doesn't. I think they've got so much confidence in Triple Eight. Like, why wouldn't you? They've been the best team for the last 10, 15 years. So the staff haven't changed a massive amount, a few little personnel changes here and there, but it's still the backbone. It's still Triple Eight. They're still going to be a finals contender. So it probably doesn't, but it's harder. Look at people having to defend. Like, when have we seen Triple Eight cars having to defend that aggressive to try and hold position? I remember the days Van Gisbergen, he'd play around, he'd do the Brody, what he's doing now. He'd box them up, use their tyres, and then, hey, Shane, we need a fast lap from you. Bang, purple sectors, off he goes. He does the fastest lap. Brock Feeney last year, 19 pole positions, drove from the front, didn't even have to get the doors damaged. If he got a good start, he was clear, he was gone. Pit stops, not under pressure. He had a 4 or 5 second gap. You could take a bit of time, but now they're under the pump, and the competition's so strong. We said, Renee the other day, we're watching the race on TV, saying this is the most competitive season we've ever seen in supercars. So you're going to see mistakes. You're going to see mistakes from the best. But like I said, Brock Feeney is very calculated, and what he does on track sometimes goes unnoticed. I think he is very, very good, and he's one of the guys I look at and go, hey, he's a champion, and he's doing champion drives when he's not winning races. So look out. When it turns, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Just don't make too many enemies, which he's doing a good job of.
Speaking of champion drives, Frosty, Cam Waters' take about what he achieved on Sunday was quite remarkable. I remember being in the media centre and seeing that Monster Energy Ford stuck on the grid, and I was like, oh, not again. But that ability to turn that into a top 5 result through all the chaos, surging through all the dust. You're super close to Cam, Frosty. Man, that's a huge drive, isn't it?
I messaged him. I said to him, mate, you're driving amazing. And it's not just that race. Like, the whole year he hasn't qualified well, and he's one of the fastest. Like, I've seen his data. I've seen him drive. His lap at Bathurst last year, unbelievable. Where he finds time, sometimes I scratch my head. I don't know how he does it. So if the car's there, he's going to do an amazing one-lap job and get up the front, and he hasn't been able to do that. He can't feel the car that he needs to drive fast, but every race, whether he starts 20th like we saw at Sydney or rear of grid at Christchurch, he doesn't give up. It is a fighter, and he keeps fighting and fighting and fighting, and that's really cool. Like, I think that again goes unnoticed. When you're not winning trophies, sometimes it goes unnoticed, but he is fighting and scrambling every race. And if you look at positions gained, I haven't got that stat on me, but he'd be off the chart. He'd be winning the award for sure. So that drive Sunday capped it up, and now they need to go back and have a good look. They've got a new bit of a new technical person that's joined the team. They've got a great field of engineers, and they've got to put their heads together and make it go fast for one lap, because race pace is there, but one lap pace, you can't continue to get buried in the pack and not have drama. And we saw that with Heimgartner, which was frustration for Cam passing, coming through. You're always passing cars. You're going to have a moment at some stage where it goes wrong. But far out, he is fighting so hard, and this will earn him the points to get him in the 10 to fight for the end of the year when they hopefully turn it around come Bathurst time, when the car just gets in a nice window.
Well, I know Cam's a good race car driver. He owns a whiskey business as well. I didn't know he was a teacher off the side. He's grading all his rivals. What did you think about that?
Well, I think Cam's a smart guy. He doesn't say a lot, but he's actually very clever. So when he needs to race hard, he races hard. When he needs to conserve, he conserves. So he was always one of the fairest blokes I saw. But he's sitting back with the popcorn at the moment, watching the fireworks go on, and he's friends with everyone. He's quite close with Brodie and quite close with Chaz. So he would have just been poking the bear a bit, just having a laugh at that one. But it's hard. When you come through the field, it's hard to keep it clean every pass you do. So at the moment, he's only had one little run-in with Andre at that time. And other than that, he's been pretty clean and he's doing a really good job.
And one last thing about Cam Frosty, he's getting a new car for Tasmania. So it's a big opportunity for that team to really roll out strong. Cam's been amazing at Simmons Plains the last few seasons. So the final step for Cam is to start winning races. What do you think it's going to take to make that happen?
Yeah, it's funny. You get a new car and they should all be the same when you get a car. But they often, I know it's a Tickford built car too, but they often just do something a little bit better, because we change springs, we change shocks, we change tyres, we change wheels, we change everything, roll bars, list goes on. But one thing that often you forget about is the massive roll cage that holds the whole car together. So he'll be very excited getting a new car. We always do as a driver. You get in and, I don't know, it's a nice feeling. You get that brand new car. So he'll feel good about that. They'll get a shakedown, obviously, if time permits, and have a run, and then they'll go to Tassie, which Simmons Plains, like you said, is a very good track for Cam, is always very good under brakes. And, we look at turn 4, we look at turn 6, leading into turn 7 there, 2 massive braking spots. It's going to be very strong for him. So I'd expect a bounce back for Cam, but, who knows? It's so close. This competition this year, it is so close that you're slightly off and you miss the top 20, you miss the top 18, you miss the top 10. It's very tight at the moment. So, but expect a bounce back, and even Randall as well. I think, he's been beaten up a little bit as well, and on his day, he'll be very fast. So collectively, I think he was on the front row last year as well, Paves, at Tassie. So they need one good quali. It'll click. It'll start to roll, get some trophies, and straight away we're back, hey, talking about monster car, going for the championship, or, they're back in it. So it can turn very quickly.
Let's talk about something that flew under the radar in New Zealand, the new Park for May rules, Frosty. It was something that the viewers mightn't have seen at the naked eye, but it probably had a big bearing on the results, and it really changed the order, I think. And for some drivers and some teams, it really, really worked. You were able to push forward, have the confidence in a setup that works from qualifying to the race. What are your thoughts on that new rule?
I always watch, and sometimes you got to do a couple of rounds to get a good feel for it, to be honest, because it doesn't make a lot of sense until you start to understand it, and then people start to make sense. But my opinion, the one person it worked for was Ryan Wood, because he went out, he did a lap time on his tyre that was unbelievable, and having the ability to change the car during the session, he nailed that lap and he got rewarded, because I saw them working on the back. The first thing they did was take rear camber off. So to go fast in qualifying, the cars require lots of front camber, lots of rear camber. That's just Motorsport 101, Carroll Smith, Drive to Win, friction competition book. So he took camber off in the race and got rewarded for it massively. So I think it may help people who go and do a good lap time and get rewarded. People don't see that side of it. So big tick for Ryan Wood, and I think it worked for him. But in terms of the racing, what you want it to do is create the unknown, massive tyre degradation, all that sort of side as well. But of course, we run dual compound tyres, and I'm not sure. I'm still sitting on the fence, I'll be honest, about what the Parc Fermé did. But if you get it right, you can really use the rules and the Parc Fermé in your favour. So I'll wait a couple of rounds, and then I'll see after Tassie what I think. Obviously, it didn't happen at Taupo because of the weather and the race formats and stuff. So we only saw one go of it at Christchurch. So yeah, I'll get a bit more data. I'll look at it and see if it worked. But cool concept. I think the concept is right. Just the tyre compounds and how it works, I'm not sure yet. I need to watch a bit more.
Well, let's stay on the technical path, Frosty. Chevy, bit of parity talk leading into Christchurch. Having seen the results coming out of that weekend, is it driver or is it team? Or is it car?
No, I can't believe that. It'd be good to get your opinion on this too, but I can't believe that there's parity talks about Chev, because last year I drove a Chev and it was fast down the straight. A year before I drove the Chev. They were trying to make the Ford faster to catch up to the Chev. The only thing that's changed is they took 888 out of a Chev and put him in a Ford. So I can't believe that there's parity talks, to be honest. But our sport always brings it out, doesn't it? There's always parity conversations. So there's a trigger that can get hit, and the trigger got hit, and that's what creates the talks. But, Jeremy Moore signs off on an aero package. He's a clever guy. The only thing they did differently this year was take 888 out of a Chev. So, there's no parity issue. I'm from my side, there's no parity issue at all. But time will tell. See what happens. They had a change to aerodynamics. I heard Barry Ryan talking about the shift in aero and balance. But day to day, when you change your ride height, it can change balance. We're always got to adapt, and often rule changes will happen. You've got to adapt. Works for you. Sometimes it takes you a couple of rounds to get better. But yeah, I believe there's no parity issue, but it's not my job, Paige. I just talk about it but what do you think about the parity?
Look, it caught us a little bit off guard because it was happening so fast. I've been in discussions with Tim Edwards and what was going to happen and how it was unfolding, and really looking at the results sheet, GM fans would probably argue that, hey, what's going on? The only podium finish they've had all season was that win for Anton De Pasquale in Sydney. So it's been a bit of a dry season for the GM guys. At the same time, you've got to contextualise it to the rest of the field, Frosty. I mean, nearly 60% of the entire Chevy fleet of drivers are rookies. And so you've got to give them a bit of leeway. In the same breath, you brought up Barry Ryan, Erebus CEO. He had a fair bit to say about drivers and gradings and things, and he was pretty blunt. He said, hey, look, we just haven't got star drivers to get the job done. They're big, big comments to make by a team boss of a Chevy team. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they had the A-grade drivers, didn't they? And they all left. So I don't really know what to say about it. I think the cars are fairly equal. Like, even look at Toyota. If Ryan Wood wasn't doing what he was doing, then the Toyota, in fairness, could probably be having parity talks too, because Chaz has been okay and the BJR cars have been a little bit further back. So Ryan Wood has been up the front, stopping that trigger from happening. So in terms of Barry's comments, I think, the drivers are one aspect of the whole package, but you've got to look at engineers. Like, I guess, Erebus lost Tom Moore, they lost, George Cummins, two of the engineers that are now gone to DJR, and with Brody, has got that, until a round ago, he had the orange numbers on the car. So he had both those personnel plus, I guess if he's calling them A-grade drivers. So it's interesting, isn't it, how you look at it? But last year, the facts are Brock Feeney dominated in a Chev. It hasn't changed really much at all, except they've gone to Ford. So, yeah, I stand on my sort of story, but everyone's got opinions. That's the great part about motorsport. And in fairness to Barry, I love that he comes out and chats. Like, I think having team owners come out and say what they think, whether it's right or wrong, they're passionate, and without them, you don't have the characters beyond the sport. So, but there's more than just drivers to the whole package.
There are. I mean, teams. It's a team sport in the end, Frosty, and Anton De Pasquale qualified on the front row for Sunday's race in Christchurch, a day after he qualified 17th. and yet there were fuel-saving issues going on from the very start of that race for Anton. So again, it comes back to, is it driver, is it team? That caught my eye a fair bit across that day, and it does affect your performance. I mean, we spoke to Anton after that race, and he was pretty subdued, to be fair, because it felt like for a time there, maybe a podium was there for the taking, and yet he didn't even finish in the top 10. So it's a team game, Frosty, and the team's got to be up to the task, aren't they?
Yeah, and he needed to get his elbows out. He had a bad start and got bumped around, and doesn't matter if you qualify second, if you're 10th after lap one, effectively you qualified 10th, didn't you? So that's not a parity issue, that's just not getting off the line. So yeah, you can go around in circles, but if you put Penrite Racing in a Chev, they'll be up the front. If you put Triple A back in a Chev, they'll be back up the front. So it's kind of, the Ford's clever. They've got the best teams at the moment, and they've got good drivers at good teams. Good teams go and get good drivers. So it's like this circle, but we all want to support our brand. If you go for Chev, you want to wear your shirt proudly at the race and hope that your guy can win. But it's more than the package at the moment, unfortunately. But, like you said, one day you're 17th, the next day you're second. And you're talking a little bit of camber, a little bit of caster, a little bit of this and that. It's not a lot. So the sport do a really good job of getting the cars close, and far out from the day that I joined the category to now, the technology, the cost, the spend, the personnel, the time that goes into it is far greater than what we had in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. So cars are very, very close. And like I said, a tenth of a second can be the difference between making the top 10 and not. I think even Chaz, look at him, he was 11th. He was 0.001 from making the top 10, it's not parity. Sometimes the lap just doesn't go your way.
Well, let's wrap this one up, Frosty. The run home brought to you by Bailey Ladders. You made a comment earlier in this recording about how competitive this season is. What makes this Supercars season better than any you've ever seen?
The teams have stepped up. Like, look at Blanchard's, for example, Golding consistently up the front. Like, last year, they were 25th and half a second off the last row on the grid. That's a turnaround. So there's so many good teams, there's so many good drivers, and sometimes you're just picking up personnel. Like Blanchard Racing obviously bought the Triple A package, but there's a guy there who's a crew chief, Dennis, who was from Team 18 actually, unbelievable at attention to detail. He's gone to Blanchard Racing. He's a big part of that team turning around. So sometimes little personnel can shift here and there, and all of a sudden that team lifts. I think, I've never seen it this close ever. So drivers are driving well, a lot of youth coming through, engineers are in the right roles, teams have got a lot of depth. Far out, the list goes on. So I still pick Matt Payne. I'll still stick by that at this point of the year to win the championship. But far out, you're throwing darts at a board, who's going to win on a weekend. It's so tight. I did not pick Ryan Wood to do what he did on the weekend. Now I expect it moving forward, and someone else will pop up that you've written off, and they come in. So the depth is huge, and it's going to be a tough year moving forward.
It's a long, long way to go in 2026. I think this year's champion, Frosty, is going to be harder to pick than a broken nose. Thanks for your time, mate, and we'll be talking soon. Thanks, everybody.